Now, while you're standing, let me just give you one little tidbit about imagination. I know a lot of you saw the video that Gil and I did recently. So you know this word imagination is a really powerful word, and it's not what you think it is. So words change meaning over time and culture. They tend to not mean the same thing they once did, and so many words have origins that are so powerful and you don't even realize it. In fact, a large percentage, let's not exaggerate, a large percentage of the words you use every day have astronomical origins. Did you know that? When you talk about someone's disposition, that used to mean how the planets were relating to them, the position of the planets. When you say you understand something, that meant to stand under the canopy of the heavens, which was considered the source of wisdom. When you say something is a disaster, do you know that means the stars are against us? Dis against aster, star. The stars are against us. There's so many words. It's just a smattering. There are so many words that have heavenly or astronomical origins. And you use them every day, but so much is sort of lost through time. Now, imagination has a story kind of like this. It's not been around for a long time. Did you know that? The word imagination is a relatively new word, relatively in the history of language, okay? So we're talking like 1,000, 1,500 years new. But what the word used to be, what we only knew it as, was the word inspiration. That's where imagination came from. Inspiration is where our word possession comes from. To be inspired is to have a spirit from the outside come into you, to your inside. It's where we get the idea of you are possessed. Same word as you are inspired. I know you're like, really? Yes, okay. It's the same connotation. Obviously, there was a bad form of having a spirit come into you. There was also a really good one. And you see this throughout the Old Testament of someone being filled, or, you get the idea. Holy Spirit came upon them, So you have this word inspired, to be inspirited, to have a spirit come into you. There is a moment where that starts to shift. And of course, it happens after Pentecost. It doesn't occur to mankind that amazing things can happen from something that's inside them. Prior to this moment, anything which we would call historically the genius of man, the moments where mankind does things that are really extra awesome, the assumption was always they got it from a spirit outside of them that came into them and inspired them to then do something really awesome. You're following? Okay, that's old inspiration. Once we have this moment of Pentecost, there is an inspiration that then stays and doesn't leave. You see what I'm saying? A spirit from the outside came in and remained. And over slowly and gradually, but over that slowly and gradual process, we start to change the way we think about how man is doing the awesome things that they're doing. And it starts to change from something's on the outside coming into, it's coming from within me. Okay? So then the genius of man is not outside, it's within, and it's just a matter of uncorking it to come out. So the word has to change from being possessed to something coming up from in here. And that birthed the word imagination. That it came from within you. It's your imagination that then results in the genius of man. You still good? Yeah. That word imagination then branches at a point in history not that long ago. And one branch keeps the original meaning of the word, the genius of man that comes from within, not from without, and the ability to see and image things that aren't necessarily in this realm. Then the other branch of the word tree imagination goes down here to mean flights of fancy. Okay, you still there? Mm-hmm. Flights of fancy. That's what you do when you're in the car driving home from work and you're remembering a conversation you had at work and you can see the whole thing play out. That's a flight of fancy. That's your imagination. You can see it. You can remember the sound of the voices. You can probably even remember smells. All of those things. That's the flights of fancy. Then over time, and this happened probably because of the scientific revolution and the technological revolution of just the last couple hundred years, we eliminated this branch of the word tree and just kept this one, which is flights of fancy. So now whenever I say that we're about to use your imagination, you have to then get over that hurdle of, now just wait a minute. I'm not just going to use my imagination. It's not going to mean anything. How do I know that it's from the Lord? And you have to realize when you're saying that, you're saying, I want to go back to old inspiration. I want some spirit out here to smack me with the experience. You're going backwards in time in the evolution of human consciousness and the evolution of man. You're going back in time to old inspiration of being possessed by something, as opposed to realizing that this moment of Pentecost changed it. And over time we got to this place where we realized the amazing things are coming from a source inside you. So when people are experiencing the heavens with their imagination, a vast majority of the time, myself included, you're going, I'm just making this stuff up. You are making it up. That's how you know you're doing it right.
That's good.
I know you're like, now, I know, right? Explain that again, Christopher. If it's coming from outside of you, I would question the source. Where's the Holy Spirit? It's in you. It remained. It came in and and we'll get over the it probably tomorrow. And remained. And remained. So when you're going, Chris, I'm just making this stuff up. You're doing it correctly because it should feel like it's coming from you. If it's not coming from you, we should really test the stuff, and test it anyway. Be a good human, test the fruit. But it should feel like it's originating inside your person and not from an outside source. So your imagination, this is, if Paul was writing his letters today, I have no doubt when he said, I pray that the eyes of your heart would be illuminated, he didn't have the word imagination. Did you know that? He did not have the word imagination. It's not in his vernacular. Had he written that today, he would have said, and I think I can say this with some degree of confidence, I pray that your imagination would be illuminated so that you can see, all these things in the kingdom. You still there? How are you going to do anything in the heavenly realm? Through imagination. And I know it's a hurdle, but you're going to have to get over it and research what I told you. Don't just take my word for it. I read a book about the origin of these English words written by Owen Barfield, because nerd moment, okay? And he had a whole section devoted to just this word inspiration and how it became imagination. Just keep that in mind. You grew up knowing flights of fancy, but that's not what the word is. And imagination in our culture is tolerated when you're under 5 and over 70, And in between there, John, you good?
Dream on, brother.
And in between those ages, you are sort of required to become mechanical and fit into the cogs and the gears and the wheels and pay your taxes and be productive, And don't worry about that stuff until we don't need you to produce anymore. Because we think of it as flights of fancy. Okay, so everything that we're going to do right now, we're going to do using your imagination. You're just going to have to trust me a little bit for like the next 20 or 30 minutes. Because what do you have to lose? I promise you, in that short amount of time, no one is going to fall off the spiritual cliff. None of you are going to become demon-possessed and become heretics and fall away from the faith. If you do in the next 20 minutes, you just come to Gil when we're done, and he'll get out the trash can and we'll do deliverance and you can throw up into the trash can. But listen, that's not going to happen. It's never happened, okay? What do you have to lose for the next 20 minutes? I just want you to trust your first impressions. Now, why am I going to ask you to do that? Because I don't want you to be your mental traffic cop today. I don't want you to go, okay, these are spiritual thoughts. These can go through. Okay, these are not. Now, this was what I had for dinner. This is not it. Okay, these are good spiritual thoughts. These sound like the Bible to me. This sounds very holy. These thoughts go through. I don't know why I'm seeing Chewbacca, so I'm going to put a sign up right there. That's not right. You know, I don't want you to do that. I just want you to trust. Those of you that have done this know that that's happened. I mean, I just want you to trust your first impressions. And I want you to do it because I want you to say in doing that you don't believe that your intellect is more powerful than God's will. Okay? And that's really what you'd be saying. If you're like, no, Chris, I can't trust the first impressions. Well, that's what you're trying to tell me, is that your will and your intellect is stronger than the Holy Spirit. So just for our time together, all weekend really, but especially tonight when we get started, just trust your first impressions. Okay? Can we do that? Okay. Who has never done this before? I'm not going to make you do anything weird, so don't worry about it. I just kind of need to know. Okay, thank you. Thank you for telling me. We're just going to start out really fun, non-spiritual stuff. And you can, those of you that have done this a lot, remember this because you can use this like on your, I don't know, neighbor or something when they want to try something like this, okay? This is a good way just to get the imagination going. Okay, close your eyes for a minute. Huh? No, stand up just a little bit more. I just want you to be nice and uncomfortable. I'm just kidding. I just want the blood to flow a little bit. You can sit down in a minute, I promise. I'm just going to say a word, and I want you to, when I call on you, you can raise a hand. You're going to tell me what's the first thing you see when I say this word. Are you ready? First thing, first impression, don't write anything off. 1, 2, 3, airplane. What's the first thing you see? Now, you can raise a hand so I can call on you. I'd love to have a volunteer. Okay, I've got one back there. Let me just go with these two right here. Okay, yes, ma'am. You saw?
Sky.
Okay, you saw sky. What was the color of the sky?
Blue and white.
Okay, so the white was from what?
Clouds.
Okay, were they thin clouds or puffy clouds? Okay, thin. How far were you from those clouds, if you had to guess? Are they super far away, or were you close to them? Okay, that's all just from me saying a word. Okay, now back here, I said airplane. What did you see? You saw smoke coming out from the tail. Okay, great. What color was the smoke? Gray. So you saw a plane, obviously. Was the plane, what color was the plane? First guess. Gray. Any stripes on it or anything, or just solid gray?
Solid gray, and it was just, a small, like 2 or 4 seater.
Okay, small plane. How close were you to that plane? Was it off in the distance, or were you like 30 feet away? What would you say? Or somewhere in between?
I was fairly close.
Fairly close. That's all just from a word. I'm going to give you another word. This is fun, right? Okay. There's nothing spiritual about this at all, so you can't do this wrong. Okay? Ready? 1, 2, 3. Book. I say book, and you immediately saw what? Now, there's no wrong answers here. Okay, the first hand was right there. What did you? You saw a page number? 39. Now, the 39, what was the color of the ink of the 39? It was black. What was the color of the page it was on? Off-white. If I asked you to look at that page, is there also writing on the page? First guess, don't think about it. Okay. Small writing or big writing? Okay, very good. Let's get another person. Who had a hand up? Okay, right there. I said book, you saw?
I saw a face coming out of and the stair was like sky and clouds.
Okay, you saw a face. I said book, and you saw a face with hair?
Hair that would look like the sky and the clouds.
The hair that would look like the sky and the clouds. Okay, fantastic. I think we're ready to move on. Okay. I mean, if we're there, I think we're ready to go, okay? Now, if you want to sit down, sit down. But I would encourage you to stand just because it's different than you've been sitting. Now, all I want you to do, use the same imagination And I want you to see the room that we're in right now, exactly as it is, with everything in the place that it's supposed to be in, all the chairs and the instruments and everything, exactly as it exists. Just see it exactly like that. Now, raise a hand high up in the air when you have that picture in your mind. You're just imagining the room that you're in. I should have done this by saying, raise a hand if you need more time. That's what I should have said. Okay, just raise a hand if you want me to wait just a few more seconds to let you imagine the room. Okay, a few more moments here. And again, just like you imagined the book in the airplane, from your memory, just imagine this room with your eyes closed. Now, what we're going to do next is you're going to mumble. You don't have to mumble loud, but mumble to yourself, Lord, where are you in this picture? First impression, don't write anything off. Don't write anything off as being unspiritual or silly or wrong. Trust your very first impression. You said, Lord, where are you in this picture? I'm going to call on you if you raise your hands. You can just give me in the one word, like where you see in the back at the sound booth, yes, sir? Right next to you. Up here, yes, sir?
Drum kit.
Drum kit. And right next to you? Drum kit. Yes, ma'am, up here. Face to face. Yes, ma'am. Shadowed everyone. Yes, ma'am.
He's in the floor, really huge.
In the huge. Yeah, in the floor. Yes. And there you are. Yes. You saw him?
Right there.
Right. Okay, right there. Anybody else see him somewhere different? Yes?
I saw him kind of floating in the air, but facing me, right?
Floating but facing you. Okay. Now just look at him. You're just using your imagination. First impressions here. Color, clothing, expression. Is Lord wearing clothes today? Don't laugh. It's possible that could occur opposite what you would think. So what color are the clothes? What kind of clothes are they? What color are they? What's the color that stands out to you? First impressions. How about hair color? Does the Lord have hair? How long is it? How tall? Any of these things, good details to look at. Color, clothing, expression. What's the expression on the Lord's face? First impressions there. Don't write anything off. Just trust your very first impression. Now raise a hand. You can tell me any of those details that you want to tell me, or all three if you do it quickly. Any takers? Yes, ma'am?
He's wearing white, but it has like purple trim.
Purple trim, why wouldn't it? Yeah.
And he's got dark curly hair, and he's like really close.
Really close. Very good. Yes, ma'am?
He's compassionately smiling.
Compassionately smiling. Yes, sir.
Ivory white, gold belt,
Yeah.
white hair,
Yeah.
totally immune.
Awesome. Loving that description. Yeah. Yes, sir.
White tunic, blue sash.
Yeah.
Long straight, or semi-long straight hair.
Yeah.
Smiling.
Smiling. Anybody else? You want to go here? Be brave? Yes.
I saw him standing in each person.
In each person.
In
Yes.
each person, so you could see him and the person
Nice.
inside of him.
Right on.
And he looked different for every single person.
Yeah.
He was dressed differently.
Cool.
Prepared differently on each.
Very good. Very good. Anybody else? Yes.
He was facing me and he was doing this,
Yeah.
saying to come on up.
Awesome. All right, now let's do that. So what we're going to do is, wherever you're seeing the Lord, I want you to mumble out loud, ever so softly. You don't have to disturb your neighbor. Lord, will you come close to me, or should I come close to you? Go ahead and mumble it. You know, for some of you, you're already close, but I want you close enough to touch if you aren't. And trust the first impression. Did Jesus immediately start walking to you? Or was he like giving you the finger to motion you forward, like you come up to where I am? Either one's fine. All I want you to do is just to get close enough to touch so you can grab an elbow or do something. And just give me a hand if I need to wait a little bit more before I move on. Do you need a little bit more time? Okay, don't worry. We'll get it worked out. You're not going to be the first person this doesn't work for. I've done this multiple continents, nationalities, through translators, every walk of life imaginable. I've never met anyone that can't see. So I promise you won't be the first one. If you hang on, we'll do some work just one-on-one before we're done tonight. Okay, so close enough to touch. Now you're going to mumble a question. You're just going to say, Lord, tell me one thing that you like about me. First impression. First impression. Don't write anything off as being silly or unspiritual.
I smile.
Your smile. You can raise a hand, I'll call on you. What'd you hear? Yes.
My laugh.
Your laugh. Yes.
Said you're like a butterfly.
You're like a butterfly. Why wouldn't he say that? It's just not something I thought Jesus would say. Yes.
My blue hair.
Your blue hair. Nice. Go ahead, raise a hand, I'll call on you. What'd you hear? Don't be shy. Don't stand on ceremony or dignity or anything else. Just have fun with it.
Your passion.
Your passion, yes.
He said he likes to kiss me.
He likes to kiss you. Anybody else? Yes. He likes your heart. And why wouldn't he? Okay, now let's ask another question. This is a really fun one. Wherever you are, remember, you should be close. Don't lose sight of the Lord here. Let's mumble out loud. Lord, tell me one thing that you know about me that I don't know about myself. First impression. What's the very first impression you hear? Don't write anything off. What'd you hear?
Well, I want to go back to the first thing, because when I asked him what he liked about me, he said, you're daring. And the first response to that was, no, I'm not daring. I mean, I'm...
You're wrong, Jesus.
So,
Yeah.
so when you said ask the second question, and it was like, well, you just told me that.
Yeah.
You said you're going to win.
Oh, nice.
I was like, okay.
Yeah. Very good. Very good. Go ahead. Raise a hand. I'll call on you. Yes, sir.
Where I'm gonna be in a year.
Ah, nice. Keep going. Yes, ma'am.
He said I'm going to be successful.
You're going to be successful. Where else? I know you heard fun stuff. Don't be shy. Yes, ma'am.
So people walk on water.
You can walk on water. Keep going. Uh-huh.
I'm fabulous.
Yeah, you're fabulous.
Amen.
And of course. Any others? Yes?
Said I have a ring in my hair.
Yeah? I don't know what it means either. But guess what your next question should be? Lord, explain that. Then trust your first impression. Yeah. How about any others? What's one thing he knows about you that you don't know about yourself? Let's have one more. One more. I see the hand. Yeah. He says, I know where you're going. Awesome. Now, remember, you want to grab an elbow, hold on tight here. You're just going to mumble to the Lord. You're going to say, Lord, would you take me to the garden? And trust the first impressions of whatever he says or does. Just watch him like a hawk. You said that. What does he do? First impressions. Now, how many of you saw a gate? As soon as I said that, how many of you? Yeah? A couple gates? How many of you just appeared in the garden? Mm-hmm. It's okay. You don't have to talk just yet. I just want you to be there for a minute. Trust the first impressions of what you see, what it feels like to you. Again, don't distrust. Let your imagination do the work. Don't go back to old inspiration and wait for something to smack you in the head about what you're supposed to see. Your imagination knows what you're supposed to see. All you have to do is let it tell you.
It's good. It's good.
And don't think that it's going to feel like a different source. If you're like, Chris, I'm making up what I want the garden to look like, I would say congratulations. Congratulations, you're doing it right. And you can ask Jesus, you can just say, Lord, what's one thing you want me to see in this place right now? And just let him lead you. Trust your first impressions of everything Jesus says or does. This is probably a good time for me to tell you, you should keep mumbling to yourself constantly. You can mumble so quiet, even your neighbor doesn't have to hear you. But if you move your lips and keep talking to yourself, it's going to help you tremendously. Just keep talking to yourself. You're allowed to have a conversation here. Don't let me feed you all the questions or all the conversation talking points. Just keep asking yourself, what is Jesus doing? What is he saying? What am I doing? What am I saying? And keep trusting your first impressions. Now, wherever you are with the Lord right now, I want you to kind of take a really good look around. Like, wherever you are in a garden, or if he took you someplace else, that's fine. Doesn't matter. Just take a good look around, and I want you just to ask him, can we come back to this spot? And then, tomorrow or tonight before I go to bed, whatever you want, just ask him, is that okay, Lord? Are we allowed to come right back here? Just ask him, trust the first impression. I don't know what he's going to say. I think he'll say yes, but he might tell you, no, I want you to go someplace else. Just ask him and trust it so that later tonight or tomorrow, whenever, you can pick up right where you left off. And before we leave, we're just going to ask one more question. We're just going to mumble out loud, Jesus, what's one thing you want me to remember from tonight? And trust the very first impression of what you think he says. Take your first guess on what do you think he said. Again, what do you have to lose? You're allowed to guess. And then when you feel like you're done, you can give some kind of a farewell, a hug, high five, fist bump, doesn't matter. Just tell the Lord, thanks. I'm going to see you soon. Maybe when I get home tonight, before I fall asleep, certainly tomorrow, when we kind of go to all sorts of different places together. But just give some kind of a farewell, and then if you aren't sitting down, sit down and open your eyes so I know you're back and you're alive and you made the trip okay. We didn't lose you. Okay, really simple stuff. Now, can I take 14 minutes and just tell 2 stories really quick? And then we'll be done for tonight. I want to really drive home how much you don't need to be special to do this. And this is the kind of thing that you don't wait to do like once you fasted and prayed for days, or you've done all the right stuff and then you're thinking, okay, that'll get me there. This is the thing you do in your worst moment. This is the thing you do when you know you don't deserve anything. This is what you do in those moments. You do this kind of stuff like what we just did on your worst day, in your worst, most jacked up moment that you're going to have. That's when you do this. Waiting to feel like you've earned this trip is a mirage. It's just the moment you think that you've done it, and wait 3 seconds. You will realize you've undone it, you know? I had so many experiences early on. It seemed like that's one thing God wanted to solidify with me, was that you cannot think that this is somehow for the elite Christians and that the rest of the masses just have to work on sinning less, you know? It's really for everybody. There's a couple moments where that was driven home for me. One time I was headed to my office to write, and right before I left, I think I wrote this story in one of the books, right before I left, me and my wife got into a marital discussion of the epic variety. In this particular case, it was my fault. And I remember driving to my office feeling like I had acted like such a jackass to this really wonderful woman. And I remember even driving to the office thinking, what am I going to do when I get there? Like, I can't go up there like this. I mean, this is not how this is supposed to go. And sure enough, I get to my office, and I'm thinking, what's the protocol for being such a jerk and then wanting to go to heaven? And like, what's the right maneuver? And I remember just peeking open the eyes of my heart and seeing Jesus with this almost goofy grin and like this power stance like this. And he's like, hey, come on up here. And not an exaggeration alert, this is exactly how the story happened. I looked up to heaven and said, did you not see what just happened? And he goes, yeah, come up here. And I didn't trust him. I was like, no, this is a trick. Like, I'm going to go up in the spirit and some angel is going to drop kick me right back down. I can see it coming. It's like a Charlie Brown moment where Lucy pulls the football away. You know, it's just, I know it's going to happen. And so I spent probably 45 minutes just kind of fuming mad and pacing around my office, just wondering how I could be just so not nice and trying to figure out what to do about it, to maybe feel like it was okay for me to go. You know, 45 minutes later, I peek open my eyes of my heart again, my imagination eyes, and I see Jesus, and he's just like, would you just come up here and we talk about it? And I go, okay. So I'm, sat on the floor, close these eyes, open these eyes, and I see myself sitting on these steps. I'm sitting here, and Jesus is here, and I feel like I'm like 8 years old. And he's big, and I'm small, and we're sitting on these steps together. And I remember he puts his hand like in my lap. And I can feel like the lines in his hand, and I can feel the hole. And I'm like rubbing it with my thumb, and sure enough, I'm boo-hooing and blowing snot everywhere. And just doing this, I remember looking at him, and I just said, Lord, how does my foolishness not make you mad? How does it not cause separation between the two of us? And he goes, Chris, he says, I stayed on the cross until it was done, until it was finished. He said, I didn't stay up there and cover 99% of the world's sin and then get down so that you could pay penance for the other 1%. He said, I stayed until it was finished. Now, I'm kind of dense, okay? So I was like, okay, I really get that you love me. Like, I really get that you did that. Still have his hand in my lap here, and I go, but same question. How does my continued foolishness not make you mad? How does it not cause some separation between the two of us? In that moment, he turns on the stairs to face me. He goes, Christopher, God did get mad at your foolishness. And he took all of his anger out on me so that he would never have to be mad at you again. Now, that was good for me. And could you get that message reading the scriptures? Sure you could. But to quote someone who said this, a man with an experience is never at the mercy of a man with a theory. And in that moment, that theory of that became very personal and very real. And because I'm dense, I've had to learn that lesson about 1 million times since. If I have an arch nemesis in my life, it's the voice in my head that says, you're getting good things from God because of the good things you've done. It's the arch nemesis of my life. It says you've somehow proven yourself worthy of something. It gets me all the time. I remember, similar scenario, feeling like, an idiot over some behavior or doing something and sitting in a Starbucks, like pondering again, how am I going to go talk to Jesus, And I remember the Father just meeting me at the Starbucks table and going, tell me what you were doing again when I decided to introduce you to the heavenly realms. Tell me what you were doing to make me think it was a good idea to show you that. I was like, nothing. He goes, so if you didn't do anything for me to bring you here, then you can't do anything for me to unbring you here. Because it's not based on anything you're doing. It's based on an act of mercy. You following? An A+ on your God report card is not earning you a trip into the heavens any more than an F- is keeping you out. You want me to say it again? An A+ on your God report card is not earning you a trip into the heavens any more than an F- is keeping you out. Has nothing to do with your performance. Nothing. You just go as you are. That's the trick here. Go as you are. I know that there are a lot of scenarios in heaven that require kind of knowing what you're doing. Sometimes people call those things protocols. Now, my experience is that relationship trumps those things every day. I don't doubt for a second that there are situations in the heavenly realms that require things like that. I'm not saying that that's the case. I can tell you that I've never encountered one. Now, that's because I probably don't do a lot of the kind of governmental stuff that other people are called to do. That's just not my job. That's not my inheritance. But even for the things that I am called to do, I have never met a series of behaviors or actions that are needed prior to going or to do something there. All that I've found that's needed is a relationship. That's it. And God takes good relationships and bad ones. You just go as you are. Because what are you going to do to prove yourself worthy to do anything up there? Nothing. You can't do it. So this weekend, I'm going to bring it to a close now. This weekend, we could go on for hours more. This weekend, we're going to do a lot of heavenly visits. And I don't care what state you come in here in, just go. And God will work it out. He'll get it figured out. Tomorrow, we're going to start with the cosmic clock and the stars and the ages and what in the world's going on these days and what's about to be going on these days. And we're going to do all of that, and we're going to talk about heresy and orthodoxy and the identity of the Holy Spirit and what is going to happen in the centuries or decades to come. We're going to look at that tomorrow. And like I said, Saturday we'll talk about the angels, and we'll do exercises to really build relationship there with the angelic realm. And if you had any trouble tonight you were like, Chris, I blanked out, couldn't see anything, just come spend 5 minutes with me before you leave. I promise that's all it will take to just get it sorted out. And I'll see you tomorrow. Oh, let me do a shameless product placement moment before we conclude.
Definitely.
Can I do that?
Definitely do that.
Okay, so here you go. Here are some books and CDs. This is book number 1. It's probably the most honest book I wrote. If for no other reason, I just really chronicled my struggle. And so Caught Up in the Spirit was really my journey, kind of going from charismatic Christendom to entering into a life of experiencing heaven in the Spirit. Lots of good foundation there. This was book number 2, which was really the first couple years of wandering around the heavens and things that were encountered there, and a lot of practical how-to stuff at the end, like the exercises we were just doing. A lot of that's in here. And then Cosmic Shift is the dangerous one. I'm glad you like it, Gil. This is very theoretical. This is me asking a lot of questions and discussing things and speculating. Now, personally, and we'll get into this tomorrow morning, because we are in a transition between cosmic ages, and that's something that can be marked astronomically. You're living in a time where I think we're going to have to become more comfortable with speculation. It's not a time where you're going to know everything. And if we're requiring people that have the microphone to be 100% accurate, no one will be able to talk. So we're going to have to allow for environments with questions and speculation, and it will take a ton of maturity amongst Christian groups that venture into that. So that's Cosmic Shift. These CDs are not teachings. They are little guided heavenly journeys, kind of like what we were just doing. A lot of what I just did is in this first CD called The Basics. And each of the other CDs is like 2 separate little journeys, and it was a lot of fun to make because it's just me recording, like walking you through a heavenly experience, and we've got this great ethereal music playing in the background, and it's so new agey. It was just so much fun. But that's what these 4 CDs are. I brought a credit card reader. I have one if you need it. And that will be today's shameless product placement moment. Love you guys. Thanks for coming. See you tomorrow, hopefully. And we'll take it from there.
All right. Well, I'm still trying to get back from the trip because of where Jesus took me. But, it's funny. I've shared this with a few people, and I'll do it at the risk of getting laughed at. But, when we started doing these ascensions and going into the heavens, I couldn't see Jesus' face. And I know that's a problem for a lot of people that, sometimes they can't see Jesus at all, and then they can see Jesus, but they can't see his face. And I couldn't see his face until finally one day I saw him. And you're going to laugh at this, but to me, Jesus looks like Bob Marley. Really? Exactly. Dreads, and for me, the reason that came across was because he's chill. And he's, now, and I'm a very analytical chop, let's make sure everything's lined up and done just right, otherwise just don't do it at all. And here Jesus is laid back. And so when you were going through that exercise, yeah, he comes over and he's, looking like Bob Marley. And when we went from there to the garden, it was instant. And he's still just chill. He's got his arm around me. And just at the same time, don't think that I don't think that, he's like, we're always just best buds and that's it. I mean, there is that element to the relationship, but it's so much more, because then I shared 2 weeks ago about how, when we go down into down to the quantum level, it's like, all these scientists are studying, they're going down further and further, and they're getting deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper until finally, when they get to the quantum level, it's like all of a sudden they just burst out into infinity, because it's like going into another dimension. It's like, I use the term, and probably, you've studied physics, so this probably really doesn't work, but I like to just say at the quantum level, everything is possible all the time. And so when we went there, it's like he showed me a flower, and he says, let's go down and look. And we went down to the molecular structure, and then down all the way down to the quantum level until we came out into another universe. And he just kept doing that. He would find another thing, and it just into another universe. I'm like, wait. So anyway, trying to come back from that, I'm like, I have no idea where I'm at right now. So, but understand that I can tell you, and raise your hand if you've already been doing ascensions, going into the heavens and having these experiences. I want you to see, because in Kingdom Equipping Center and some of these other places, like up in Lakeport at, Fresh Winds, this has been going on. The people are teaching this and they're learning this. This is powerful stuff, because I can guarantee you, if you haven't been experiencing this, ask one of these people what it's done for their a life with Christ, their intimacy, and just ask them what it's done. And I can almost guarantee you, you're going to find out that their intimacy has increased and their humility has increased as well, because you begin to realize how much there is to learn in heaven, how much there is, period. And it's just an unending journey, and God wants to show you things, and he wants to teach you things. And I can't encourage you to do it enough. So tomorrow we'll be doing more.